Avatar: The Last Airbender presents us with two Tophs. The first is the delicate, demure, fragile blind girl she pretends to be to gain her parents' approval. The other is the rough and tumble, determined, resilient warrior who's willing to do anything and to go to any length to help out her friends when they're in danger. However, there are also two more versions of Toph. One is the memeified version of her. This is the Toph that does nothing but beat up baddies and spout witty one-liners. Now, these are, of course, important facets of her character. In fact, that she can do this while being blind makes her one of the most inspirational characters in Avatar. Her blindness is not presented as a weakness, but as a part of her being, as a part of herself, even as a strength. However, she is so much more than this one-dimensional warrior. There is a real vulnerable side to her that a lot of people overlook. This is a person who, whenever she puts herself out there, whenever she reveals her true self and her true feelings and really opens up to someone, she consistently is betrayed. I do see her story as tragic, and despite the front she puts up, I think a part of her sees it that way as well. This is Avatar Explained, Toph Edition. I realize that this is a difficult case to make. I only ask that you bear with me. Let's start with her life before the events of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Her parents believe that because she has a disability, she will never be able to live a normal life, and she must always be protected. However, it's not just that. If it were just that, it would be a terrible, condescending misunderstanding of their daughter, but it would not be tragic or cruel. No, what is terrible is that they want her to be this poor little weak blind girl. At least if the alternative is the gruff, trash-talking person she really is. In episode 206, The Blind Bandit, we see these two versions of Toph constantly contrasted with one another. Aang, ever the jokester, finds this rather humorous, but he's empathetic enough to know that this is also deeply sad. At the end of the episode, Toph saves herself from those wishing to do her and Aang harm, demonstrating exquisite control of earthbending while doing so. Unlike other earthbenders we have seen, like her foe in the Earth Rumble arena, the Boulder, Toph demonstrates complete understanding of the philosophical side of earthbending. She waits and listens. She doesn't act so much as she reacts, decisively using her opponent's moves against them. Master Wu, watching her, calls her the best earthbender he has ever seen. Master Wu may be something of a pompous fool, but he knows what good earthbending is. Victorious, Toph returns to her parents and makes a heartfelt plea for them to accept the real her. It is the most unguarded and sincere that we have seen her, to the point that it becomes a little disquieting to watch. She may enjoy playing the role of the tough-as-nails, nothing-can-hurt-me warrior, but we're forced to wonder if that isn't also a pose. This is a different and more vulnerable side to her. She doesn't bring it out often because she doesn't want to be hurt, but she knows she needs to show it if she is to convince her parents that what she is saying is the absolute truth. It's a beautiful, heartfelt speech. One can easily tell that she is not a trained public speaker, but that is what makes it work. Every word is from the heart. It's very hard for her to say all of this, but she says it anyway. And what does she get for her raw honesty? One of the most brutal rejections in the history of television. The conventions of these stories about one finally shedding their fake identity and accepting who they really are state that Toph should be accepted here. Her parents should realize they were wrong and say they don't care if she's a rough-and-tumble warrior tomboy. They should say that they support her, but they don't. After seeing into the depths of her soul, they reject her and demand that the facade be restored. They say that she has had too much freedom. They say that someone should be keeping an eye on her every minute of every day. Avatar may be an optimistic, idealistic series overall, but it is impressively blunt and realistic when it comes to depicting parental abuse. No, Toph's parents didn't burn her face Ozai style,
but that doesn't make the fact of her abuse less legitimate. I will admit that there are times in Avatar: The Last Airbender when Toph gets on my nerves a little. I mostly like her, but sometimes she can be a little too callous and cynical. She rarely opens up. But when I step back and look at her character on a bigger picture level, I suddenly feel a profound rush of sympathy for her. Of course she doesn't open up. Why should she? Whenever she opens up, she's always left miserable and heartbroken. There are only 3 other times in Avatar when she seriously tries to open up to someone. The first time is in the Season 2 episode, The Chase, where she meets Uncle Iroh, and the two of them form an unlikely friendship. The relationship between them starts off a little rocky, with Toph thinking Iroh is just like her parents, a condescending adult who says he wants to help her, but doesn't actually know what she is going through. However, he gradually proves her wrong. He proves that his concern is honest and genuine. Even though there are a number of differences between them, he's an old man, she's a young kid, he's a respected general, she's someone the world didn't even know about because her parents kept her hidden away. She's allied with Aang, he's allied with Zuko, they form a strong connection. On the whole, this isn't a bad start. Let's look at the next time she opens up, in the Season 3 episode, The Runaway. No, I'm not going to be counting her segment with Katara in episode 215, The Tales of Ba Sing Se. While her self-consciousness about her appearance is unfortunate, it's never brought up again, and it doesn't have much to do with the core of who she is. That is not the case when she opens up to Sokka in The Runaway. This is right after she has a huge fight with Katara, who is concerned that her excessive scheming is an unnecessary risk. The fight quickly becomes about a lot more than her scheming. Katara's maternal attitudes strike Toph the wrong way because of Toph's own complicated relationship with her mother. When Sokka calls Toph over to the edge of a waterfall to talk, Toph is initially reluctant, thinking Sokka will just moralistically tell her to be nice to Katara. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he helps cultivate real empathy. He talks about how Katara's motherly tendencies can be annoying, but that he depends on them. Having lost his own mother, he was more or less raised by Katara, even though she's younger than him. When he pictures his own mother's face now, all he can think of is Katara. This sobering, solemn, intimate revelation prompts Toph to let her guard down. She says that despite what she has claimed in the past, she doesn't really mind how motherly Katara acts. She admits that Katara has always been more of a real mother to her than her actual mother. These two interactions reveal that Toph's story doesn't have to be a tragedy. It could have been the story of an emotionally scarred young woman who learns to let her guard down in the presence of a group of people who truly and honestly care about her. So why am I saying that it is a tragedy? First, we have to look at the last time she tries to open up to someone in Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is when she begs to go on a life-changing field trip with Zuko. She spills her soul out to him, speaking passionately about her struggles with her parents. However, Zuko refuses to show the empathy he afforded to Aang, Sokka, and Katara. This is played as a joke. The music swells with melodrama. The audience is not supposed to side against Zuko, but I do. Yes, Team Avatar is on the verge of the final battle, but that doesn't mean they don't have time for interpersonal connection. If anything, this is precisely the time for such a connection. For Zuko to sweep her aside in service of a joke feels at least mildly out of character for him. It's not like the two of them have absolutely nothing in common. They both struggle to open up because of the abuse they have suffered. They are both very close to Iroh, and they both have been forced to present to the world a false image of themselves. Yes, they have a more substantial chat in the Ember Island Players, but that's more in service to Zuko's character than Toph's, so it does little to alleviate the sting of this interaction. Why do I care about this so much, you might ask? It's a joke, you might say, and a funny one at that. And, well, you're right, but so what? Viewed in the context of Toph's history of being rejected whenever she opens up, it's a bit cruel. To fully understand why, we have to look at what happens to her after the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender. By the time we see her in Season 4 of The Legend of Korra, she's a grumpy old woman. She's still capable of love and caring, as we see when she rescues her family from Kuvira, but the light has definitely gone out. At first glance, she might seem to be the same person we see in Avatar The Last Airbender, only a little older and wearier, but that is not the case. Young Toph had, despite everything she had endured, a general optimism about the world. She trusted herself and Team Avatar. Old Toph is a cynic. This comes through most overtly when she argues that nothing Korra has done matters. This is something young Toph, for all her frustration and bitterness, never would have said. Young Toph was vulnerable, even if she pretended otherwise. Old Toph isn't. One must only look at Toph's personal history between Avatar and Korra to learn why. She had 2 kids by 2 different men, neither of whom are in her life, or have been for a long time. She had to raise both kids by herself while trying to be Republic City's chief of police. Though she pretends that she doesn't care about this, she clearly does. When she talks about Lin's father, a man named Kanto, she simply says that he was a nice man, but the relationship ultimately did not work out. This seems underwhelming until one realizes that this is a woman who described the final battle for the fate of the world at the end of Avatar The Last Airbender by saying, "It was hot. I was on a blimp, and I think a giant turtle showed up." Is it really that far-fetched that this woman would intentionally obscure important details about a relationship that went badly? To her credit, Toph doesn't take any of her frustrations out on her kids, whom she loves deeply in her own gruff way, but that doesn't mean these frustrations don't exist. This woman, who has had trust issues since she was a kid, gets to know 2 men well enough to have kids with them, only for those men to not be around to help her raise those kids. Her breaking up with these men is unfortunate, but it is not innately tragic. She is a stubborn, strong-willed person with a lot of professional responsibilities. It's not hard to imagine that 2 important long-term relationships she had with men failed. What's tragic is that they are nowhere to be found. They're not a part of their children's lives. That's no less of a betrayal than Toph's parents rejecting her true self at the end of The Blind Bandit. Toph may not be right to be as cynical as she is by Season 4 of The Legend of Korra, but it is not hard to understand why she is like she is. Despite her flaws, she is kind and moral and just. And what did that get her? Nothing. Throughout her life, the universe disappoints her. That disappointment takes many forms, but it seems almost inescapable. This is the case from when we first meet Toph to the last time we see her, which is what takes her from someone to whom tragic things happen to a truly tragic character. This isn't to say everything is gloom and doom for Toph. I want to make that clear. A lot does go right in her life. For another, she gets to repair the relationships between her and her children. For a third, she gets an answer to the question she asked in episode 306, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, about whether friendships can transcend lifetimes, as she eventually becomes at least somewhat friendly with Korra, Aang's next life. Also, she does eventually repair her relationship with her parents somewhat, as depicted in the comic trilogy The Rift. But all of these accomplishments are best viewed not as indications that her destiny isn't grim and tragic, but rather as a sign that she is working against that tragic destiny.
The world she lives in does not care about her, and it constantly tries to destroy her. That she does not succumb to despair and sorrow is as much a testament to her as any of the rocks she lifts and any of the Fire Nation goons she defeats. So thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more content like this. And overall, keep watching Avatar. Adios, comrades!